I'm 20 drafts deep on Underdog at this point, so in this video, not only are you going to see who my favorite players are round by round in fantasy football drafts, but you're also going to see kind of how I like to draft. You're going to see the method I like to use, the players I like to get per round. You're going to get to see the overall strategy that I'm doing in fantasy football drafts this year. Go down there, drop a like in the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support, because I'm trying to get us all ready for this upcoming season. So let's go to round one right here. At round one, there was really two big options here. And the way I want to do this is that round one, obviously, if we all had the chance to get a guy like Christian McCaffrey or CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill, we'd all be taking them, right? Well, the bottom line is 9 other people aren't going to have the opportunity to take them. So I wanted to go with a more later first round pick here. And it was really between two guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Bijan Robinson for me. Taking to both of them a lot. I got to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown though. Now, the reason I prefer Amon-Ra St. Brown over Bijan Robinson is because we have a proven model that is working with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, you could take a look over the past 3 years since he's been in the NFL. It's been nothing but just constant improvement and just getting more involved every single year. Like, every single year with Amon-Ra St. Brown, his targets go up. And not only do the targets go up, but the efficiency goes up. Now, this is obviously a extremely efficient offense in Detroit. And it's obviously a run-first offense with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. This is exactly how you want it though, because Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to continue to handle 10 plus targets per game. And the more efficient that he's gotten, he's become a more high upside guy with 1,500 yards receiving last year and 17 fantasy points per game in a half PPR format. So Amon-Ra St. Brown just has a proven model, whereas with Bijan Robinson, I really do like taking Bijan Robinson a lot. I just made a video. I can't stop taking him at the running back position in the first round if that's what I'm trying to do, but we haven't seen it yet with Bijan. We've seen elite production from Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he just got signed to a new contract, so you know that he's not going to just lose importance to this offense in Detroit. Like I said, still think Bijan's a good pick, but I prefer Amon-Ra St. Brown as the must-draft guy in the first round. Now, dropping down to round two, this is going to be an interesting one because lately what I've been really liking to do in round two is just keep going with wide receivers. I like to go with guys like Nico Collins in this round, Brandon Ayuk in this round. But if I had a perfect world right here, Jonathan Taylor is the guy that I'm going for right here. So let's start out by looking at last year's numbers with Jonathan Taylor. What you can see from Jonathan Taylor, and keep in mind this was a shortened season for Jonathan Taylor here. He did not play all 16 games. What he did when he was playing is 14.7 fantasy points per game in a half PPR format, and he was averaging a little under 20 opportunities per game between rushing attempts and targets right here. He was also pretty efficient, not his best efficiency year, but considering all the injuries that he's had over the past 2 years, how weird his seasons have been, 4.4 yards per carry is still a very good rushing number when it comes to his efficiency. And he also ran for 7 touchdowns here. Now, what's really interesting about Jonathan Taylor is I actually just did a video on Saquon Barkley and why I am not drafting him and why you should not be drafting Saquon Barkley. Now, the content of that video, I was highlighting a lot of the difficulties and the problems that running backs have to overcome with a rushing quarterback. Now, Jalen Hurts is obviously a rushing quarterback with Saquon Barkley. And really the main reason I have an issue with Saquon is because of the draft price right now. If he was going as the running back 7, the running back 8, probably wouldn't have made that video because it doesn't matter quite as much because I think that's probably where he'll produce around. We're talking about top 5 guys though. And Jonathan Taylor is fitting that billing right there. And Jonathan Taylor also has a rushing quarterback too. So why do I like him over Saquon Barkley? There's two main differences here. The two main differences, one of them has to do with age. Jonathan Taylor is 2 years younger than Saquon Barkley and has not had quite as many lower body injuries as Saquon Barkley. Now, I know people will come back and say, yeah, he's been dealing with an ankle injury the past several seasons. And of course, that is a very, like, you cannot dispute that. That is obviously very, very true when it comes to Jonathan Taylor. But the thing about Jonathan Taylor is that he has not showed any signs of slowing down, whereas Saquon Barkley, the past 3 seasons, He's been under 4 yards per carry. Jonathan Taylor has not been in that situation here. And the other difference here is that Jonathan Taylor, when you look at him and Saquon Barkley together, Saquon Barkley, a lot of his production in fantasy football was coming from the targets that he was getting. He was getting so many targets in New York that a lot of his production was just coming from his receiving upside. He's not going to get that with Jalen Hurts, so his fantasy production will drop. Well, look at last year with Jonathan Taylor. He had 2 targets per game last year. So, and keep in mind, that was without Anthony Richardson at quarterback. He didn't get to play with Anthony Richardson. He missed the beginning of the season, and then by the time he was back, Anthony Richardson was out. So when Anthony Richardson is there, even if this drops down to 1 target per game, you're not losing much production here. Jonathan Taylor is still efficient. He still has a great offensive line in front of him, and he has a running quarterback that will absolutely make him more efficient as well. So Jonathan Taylor, to me, is the dream pick in the second round here. Now, moving on to round 3 right here. Round 3 is actually a pretty tough round right here. I've drafted a bunch of guys that I really like in this range, like Derrick Henry, Michael Pittman, and even if I want to do that tight end early, I like getting Sam Laporta in this round. Here's the thing about the reason I'm picking Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs is my round 3 pick, and really because I think he arguably has the most upside out of the guys that I just named. Now, lining him up against a guy like Derrick Henry, I love the landing spot for Henry. That's why I've taken so much of him. I think he'll be really good with Baltimore. But I also think that with Stefon Diggs, even if he is not the wide receiver 1 when it comes to big plays and touchdowns scored, because I think that's probably going to be Nico Collins' thing, Stefon Diggs, I could easily see leading the team in targets. And so with Houston, the way they run their offense, that's going to be fantastic because Stefon Diggs will be able to get a lot of the shorter yard stuff. And of course, Stefon Diggs is still capable of big plays and big games. So the chances that he gives you like 25 to 30 point games in 2024, I think they're still very, very high. And I don't think that his floor is going to be very low. Now, keep in mind, when you're drafting on Underdog, you're getting in one of these massive tournaments that could win you literally millions of dollars. So you don't want to just go based on who's got a high floor here. I think Stefon Diggs' ceiling is high for the reasons I just explained, but I also do think his floor is pretty safe here. So Stefon Diggs, like I said, this is a tougher round for me. I could easily see going Derrick Henry and Michael Pittman and Sam Laporta in my own drafts. I've done it a ton. I've really got kind of an equal amount of all of them, depending on who falls to me. But I do think Stefon Diggs is a little bit ideal. Now, dropping down to round 4 here. Round 4, I like a lot of guys in this round. I actually think round 4 is a great round. But I love 2 in particular. The 2 guys I love are Josh Jacobs and Patrick Mahomes. But I gotta tell you, I gotta go with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is, let's break this down. So Patrick Mahomes is going at the very end of round 4. You could see that on the screen right now. He is literally, by ADP, the last pick in the 4th round. He's also the quarterback 4 on Underdog. Now, is that an absurd thing? No, it's not an absurd thing, and I'll tell you why. The reason why it's not absurd is because Patrick Mahomes had a down year last year. Patrick Mahomes was obviously not at his best. And we could argue, well, the main reason because of this is because not only did he not have a true wide receiver 1 for most of the year until Rashee Rice really developed towards the back half of the year, but Travis Kelce, the main guy, is also starting to lose a step. So what's so different about this year? Like, they got Xavier Worthy in the 1st round, but he's not exactly the most complete wide receiver. Well, I want to take us back to 2022. 2022 was the first year that they had to deal without Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill left a massive mark on that offense, and of course he did so much, but the main problem is that it took away their main deep threat. And still, in 2022, Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback 1. The quarterback 1. And that was without Tyreek Hill. That was, with Travis Kelce, who had an elite season that year. But as far as their wide receivers go, it was a collection of Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, trying to throw Sky Moore in there. It was a train wreck at the wide receiver position. And I think that showed last year in 2023 because Travis Kelce is getting older. The difference this year, I'm not saying that Xavier Worthy is going to be a Tyreek Hill, what he will provide is their best deep threat since Tyreek Hill. That in turn opens up the offense. Very similar to how Detroit is trying to use Jameson Williams. They're not trying to have Jameson Williams be a 10 target per game guy. That's their Amon-Ra St. Brown's that guy. What they want from him is to open up the rest of the offense. That's what I think Xavier Worthy does for Patrick Mahomes. And that in turn raises the upside. It raises the likelihood that he gets more touchdowns per game in 2024. So I think this is just a great move to draft Patrick Mahomes. And it ultimately really comes down to me being big on coming away with a high upside quarterback early in these drafts. Now, round number 5. Round number 5, this is kind of around the time that players start to fall out of people's draft boards. So players start to fall as far as getting values. And also, guys who are drafting, they start reaching for certain players right here. I'll be honest, this is my least favorite round that we go through so far. Round 5 is definitely my least favorite round. I'm not saying there's no good players here. There's really good players. CJ Stroud, if you didn't pick Mahomes, he's right there. Anthony Richardson, I think is high upside. James Cook, Rachaad White, if you want a running back here. Now, the way I like to draft personally, it doesn't really mesh with round 5 because usually I'm looking for my third wide receiver by this round. So when I'm looking at the guys over here, really the only guy that I have significant interest in is Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed, not only because Jayden Reed was on my team in 2023 on one of my best ball teams that got me to round 2. He helped me get there. The difference was he was much better value back then. Now he's going round 5. He was not going close to that in 2023. So with him in round 5, I'm a little uncomfortable because I don't think that he's an alpha wide receiver 1. Now, I want to be clear. I think Jayden Reed is the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay, but I don't think he's an alpha that is going to be a guy who's the clear number 1 target. I think Jayden Reed will still split a lot of duties with these guys, and he'll probably have some 5-point games or some 6-point games that really disappoint you. But Jayden Reed, the ultimate thing that I like about him is that he's used very similar in Green Bay's offense to how Deebo Samuel is used in San Francisco's offense. The thing about Deebo Samuel is that he's really not the best receiver. He's a good one, but he's not the best. Where he succeeds with San Francisco, he's a jack of all trades. They use him everywhere. They use him for everything. So with Jayden Reed, if you looked at his production last year, if you just watched him on film, he was always moving before the snap of the ball. He was always in motion, always going somewhere because he is their chess piece right here. He is their very, very valuable chess piece on their chessboard because he does a lot of short stuff. He can go deep and he's a great runner. He's a great athlete. So Jayden Reed just has more opportunities for touches than the other wide receivers here, and that's why I think he's the best wide receiver in Green Bay. Not because he'll lead the team in targets necessarily, but because he'll lead them in opportunities. So I think the potential here for big games, like he did at the end of last year, is definitely going to be here. And in round 5, I really like that upside. Now, dropping down to the 6th round right here, I really like this round. I really, really like this round. There's a lot of guys I like here. But I'll be honest, the main reason I like this round is because of one guy, and it's really not close. Jordan Addison is my guy. Jordan Addison, I've discussed this. Sometimes I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know what the problem is with Jordan Addison in the eyes of most fantasy football players right now. I have no idea what the problem is. Jordan Addison is the biggest steal to me of any player. He's going as a high-end wide receiver 4. Do you know where he finished last year? He was a top 25 wide receiver in his rookie season. And I think one of the arguments that I've heard is that, well, without Kirk Cousins, it's going to be a problem. Well, let me tell you something. We all remember when Kirk Cousins went down mid-season last year, right? And he still was super productive with Nick Mullins, with Josh Dobbs. Like, they had so many quarterbacks over there in Minnesota, and he still succeeded. Now, there's 2 reasons for it. Number 1 is because Jordan Addison is a very good wide receiver. He's one of the best wide receiver 2s in the game. I've gotten pushback for saying that. I don't care. I stand by that, and people need to recognize that. The number 2 reason is because Jordan Addison is attached to a head coach, Kevin O'Connell, who's not only a former quarterback, but every single year, which is only 2 years, but both years with Minnesota as their head coach, they've been one of the bottom 5 teams in rushing attempts. He doesn't want to run the ball. He wants to throw the ball. So even if it's Sam Darnold, and that's not ideal. I don't want Sam Darnold there to be his quarterback, but even if it is, Jordan Addison is going to take a leap in year 2. He's going to take a leap. And with Justin Jefferson there, he's never going to get double coverage. If he's not there, then he's going to get more targets. I don't understand why people don't see this as a massive win. Jordan Addison, I rest my case. Round 7 right here. I also think that this one is a very easy one for me personally. And by this time, you might be wondering, you've only got one running back. You've got one running back here. Why is that? Well, there's 2 reasons here. Number 1 is because underdog tournaments, which is where most people are drafting right now, and you should as well by using code FFN to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Underdog tournaments are 3 wide receiver. That's a 3 wide receiver format. So basically what it does is wide receivers just go much earlier than running backs. And the other reason is because of that format, it pushes the value of running backs down the list. So running backs are so much cheaper, and there's a lot of great values for the next several rounds here. And I gotta tell you, none of them are better than David Montgomery. I love David Montgomery. I've also made several videos about this too. I really don't think this one needs a ton of explaining because David Montgomery is just in a great situation all over again. I already have him ranked several spots higher than where he's ranked on underdog as far as running backs go. So this is already a great ranking draft by me. For me personally, this is a great draft based on my rankings. But the main reason he's ranked higher for me is because everything's the same. David Montgomery is in the perfect situation with a top 2 offensive line according to PFF. He's got a quarterback who's got all the security in the world and is a very good quarterback. But he also is a good quarterback when there's a good run game. Well, lucky for him, Ben Johnson is still the offensive coordinator. Elite offensive coordinator. And I understand Jahmyr Gibbs. People think that he might get more touches this year, and I actually think he will. I think when you look at last year, Jahmyr Gibbs was relevant for the back half, but not as relevant in the first half. There was a time where people didn't want Jahmyr Gibbs at the beginning of last year. I think he'll get a lot of the work that he got towards the back half of the season long in 2024, but that does not move David Montgomery down the list. David Montgomery has touchdown upside on his side because he is their red zone running back, and he also has a lot of carries between the 20s, and he's efficient because of the offensive line. So the upside here for another 10 touchdown season is super high because 2 years straight now with Ben Johnson's offense, a Detroit running back has had 10 plus touchdowns. Dave Montgomery did it in 2023, and Jamal Williams did it in 2022. I love Dave Montgomery here at round 7. And then round 8, Tony Pollard is my guy here. Now, a couple of months back, I would have said this was an easy Raheem Mostert for me. It's not that I don't like Raheem Mostert anymore. I do. I think Raheem Mostert has plenty of upside. I think the value here is very, very good just based on what he did last year. I see issues here, though. I see the fact that he's 32 years old. The guy is in his 30s now, and it was the only season that he played the entire season in 2023. So can he do that again? Well, history would probably show not going to be the case. I also like the idea of getting guys like Jake Ferguson as my first tight end. I like the idea of getting guys like Jordan Love if I didn't go with Patrick Mahomes or one of those other early round quarterbacks. There's a lot of good values at running back here right now, and I just have to start hammering them. Tony Pollard is my guy for a couple reasons, and Tony Pollard really, the main thing with me is I really want pieces of this Titans offense. If I'm not getting Calvin Ridley because I'm getting Jordan Addison, tons and tons of him, I want a piece of this offense. So I'll go with Tony Pollard. The reason I want a piece of this offense is because Tennessee has totally shifted their entire offensive system. Their whole team system is shifted. They went from defense first, Mike Vrabel, to offense first, Brian Callahan. They're also rebuilding the offensive line. They did it through the draft. And I think the chances that Tony Pollard is joined by Tyjae Spears as a Batman and Robin type of duo, I think they're pretty high. And you might say, why does that make him good in fantasy? It's very much like the David Montgomery thing. This is going to maximize Tony Pollard's efficiency on the ground and through the air. Because Tony Pollard, the problem that he had in 2023 was that he was the guy and he's not built to be the guy. Tony Pollard, I think the upside for him to be a top 15 running back is absolutely there if Tennessee hits offensively. And of course, I know it's a relatively long shot, but I'm going to trust in Tony Pollard. And I think at this round, it's a great upside pick. At round 9, David Njoku is the guy here. And this may spark some conversation in the comments about tight end preference here, because in round 9, you have two options. You've got two options here. You've got David Njoku and Brock Bowers. A lot of people are going to pick the rookie because he's exciting, he's new, he's young, he's a very good tight end prospect. I like all those things in a dynasty format. I don't think it's his year. History is not on the side of rookie tight ends. Take Sam Laporta out. He's a very rare exception over the last 20 years. What we have with David Njoku is seriously just solid. David Njoku is in an offense that really does not have a ton of wide receiver talent. I like Amari Cooper, but there's no guarantee that he's even a Brown. I've heard he might be a post-June 1st cut, so we may see him get cut here in the next couple weeks. And then who do they have after that? Jerry Jeudy, who has been a total disappointment. They've got Cedric Tillman trying to break out. They've got Elijah Moore. Who's moving the needle? Even if Amari Cooper stays, David Njoku is still a top piece of that offense. And by the way, Deshaun Watson does like to throw to David Njoku. So David Njoku, yeah, he's not going to be productive forever, but he's still in his 20s, and he still is coming off a fantastic season. I don't see any reason he slows down. So as my first tight end here, I like David Njoku in round 9. Now I'm going to go to round 10. And this is going to be the last round I cover here. And if you want to see another video just like this, let me know in the comments below, and I'll go through the later rounds in a different video. But round 10 right here, this is probably going to shock you if you follow my channel. If you routinely watch my videos, this one may have you a little bit shocked because Gus Edwards is in this range. And I've taken a ton of Gus Edwards. I still will take him. In a lot of drafts, I've drafted way more of him than this guy, but I'm starting to shift this way to Brian Robinson Jr. Brian Robinson Jr. has all of a sudden become very interesting to me. Now, with Brian Robinson Jr., this is a guy for years, I have not really liked in fantasy football. This year's different. With Brian Robinson Jr., with Washington and their situation the past several years, they haven't had a mobile quarterback that has opened up efficiency for a running back. And Brian Robinson, he kind of needs that. Brian Robinson's not the most efficient guy. I don't think he's the most talented guy. And Brian Robinson Jr. has also never been a pass catcher. And there's just direct history linking low running back receiving volume with running quarterbacks here. So obviously they get Jaden Daniels. 102 overall, he's starting day one. There's no question about it here. So if it hits, Brian Robinson Jr. is in an offense with an electric running quarterback, similar to a Lamar Jackson. Not saying he is, but I'm saying his running style, his capability, very, very similar. That will theoretically open up so much for Brian Robinson Jr. And Jaden Daniels is not a guy that's getting a ton of red zone carries because he's not that big. Again, comparable to Lamar, Jaden Daniels is not a super thick guy like a Jalen Hurts is. Brian Robinson Jr., if things open up for him, I could see his efficiency going up, and I could see his touchdowns going up. So yes, I'm still drafting a bunch of Gus Bus, but I really, really am in on drafting Brian Robinson Jr. right now. So let me know what you think of the video in the comments below, and let me know if you want to see a part 2 to this video for the later rounds as well.